All right, y'all. All right, so again, thank you all for your time this evening. I wanted to bring you in to have a hard discussion. I think that we live in a society where a lot of things are taboo or forbidden, and so many times people just kind of carry around the weight of their own secrets. And in light of releasing or relaunching my book, The Clinic, I wanted to start the conversation and just to create some momentum and traction surrounding the book and the content of it. And the timing was perfect because it was 10 years ago that I wrote this book. But then this year, when Roe versus Wade was overturned, it kind of sparked something in me that said, you know what, you never had the conversation surrounding the contents of the clinic. And part of me not really doing a traditional book launch 10 years ago with it was because I wanted to have the conversation paired with it. And so tonight, I'm hoping that we can, again, start the traction with the conversation. You can be as candid as you would like. My motto is there's total freedom in being free. I say that all the time. And so I am one that kind of walks in transparency because I've learned in my life that if I'm being transparent about things, one, I'm releasing it. Two, it's not keeping me in bondage. And three, I don't care what other people have to say about it because if I'm talking about it, who cares? You can't hurt me with it because I'm already talking about it. And so showing you're the only guy on tonight, my icebreaker actually was, and you can answer this as well from a male perspective, but for the women on the call, I wanted to start off by asking, like, what is the most empowering thing about being a female? And we can popcorn it so anybody can jump in.
Well, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut right now. Y'all got it.
But you can talk from like the sidelines, like when you think of a woman and the empowering momentum or just how they conduct themselves, like as a man, what is it that you look for or that you find to be super empowering about women? It could be women in general, it could be women that you've been in contact with, it could be the women in your family. And so you don't have to keep your mouth shut. I think that with the way that the conversation will go, everybody will be able to participate.
So I'm personally me, I guess like it falls under Roe versus Wade. I think the most empowering thing is like a woman can carry a baby up to like 9 months in their belly or like 7 to 9 months. I think that's empowering because not a lot of people can do that. So it makes me think a woman is strong for being able to grow another human body.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that.
I personally think that women all around are strong. And no offense, little cuz, but I think women are actually stronger than men. Like the young lady said, we carry children, we birth them. We go through a lot, we don't speak on it sometimes. And I think sometimes we carry the weight well. We hold it in to make sure everybody else around us is taken care of or cared for. And a lot of times we neglect ourselves in that. So I say women are, when God created women, he knew what he was doing. I'm telling you, we carry some stuff that, and even when a woman's sharing, open up, sometimes she still don't come forward with everything that she, is holding,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. I agree. All right, are we going to the left or the right of the box?
Hello, everyone. I'm gonna piggyback off of them. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Kiera. I don't really know Aaliyah, but nice to meet you. I'm Kiera. Everybody else I know. I agree with both of you, with my mom and you said about women being able to, carry the child and also like nurture, like we are known for taking care of the family, holding things down. Although like men are quote unquote there to provide financially. I'm just using it as an example. A lot of times you find that the woman is taking care of, the children, they're going to work, they're doing this, they're doing that. So I guess that's where the strong Black woman came from. I don't know, or, just different things that women go through emotionally, financially, physically, all of these different things that a woman has to endure. I feel like that makes us strong, that makes us empowering in each and every way. So I agree with both of you.
Okay, awesome. Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
definitely have to agree with that. I think that's like the biggest strength is that life comes from y'all. So I think there's a level of humility that I kind of come forth with dealing with a woman, knowing that sort of power, that sort of life force that comes from y'all. But I would say the biggest thing to me is, like the power of the heart. Just speaking from like the women in our family, like knowing, even not even like cousin Arnice said, not even having the full picture of what y'all deal with, but even like having a little glimpse into the women in our family's backstories and understanding, like, despite all the things that y'all have been through, y'all still, you just like are like full of love, like always see y'all like laughing, smiling, despite everything. So I think the power of the heart is probably the biggest thing that I've learned from the women in our family. Just the way y'all persevere and kind of push through in spite of all of the negatives that we deal with. In the way that y'all kind of show up for the kids, the men, the other women in the family, just kind of being the backbone of the family unit. It's something that I always have to take my hat off for.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. Listen, so let me switch up. I'm going to switch it up just a little bit. And it kind of dropped in my spirit when Kiera made her comment. She said, I don't know Aaliyah. So tonight, honestly, everybody on the screen is family. So Aaliyah is your cousin. So Lily, meet Kiki, Kiki, meet Lily, right? And so we're going to switch. So Lily is cousin Tico's daughter. And so we are going to switch it up because I think that because we all are family, this can be a more intimate discussion. I think that in tonight's discussion, you guys may hear some stuff that you aren't privy to. But I think that just the mindset and the heart that you all possess, I think that tonight's discussion will carry you guys. I think that it will, again, give you a little bit more insight to why we operate the way that we do, why we talk the way that we do. And so tonight is going to be family time, so we can, kind of let our hair down a little bit and just move forward with it. And so thank you all for that. And what came to mind for me when I thought of the question about the most empowering thing, mine was going to be to create life and the resiliency of a woman. And so I think that all of you kind of captured just that. I think that Sean took it a step further with speaking of the heart, and it all makes sense, right? Because as women, we carry a lot. I mean, men carry a lot, but we carry a whole lot. And so like Kiki said, men are in position, right, according to society and everything, just to be providers, just to show up for their families, but it's so much more and it's intricate. And if we're losing that level of empowerment from the women, then our men lose too. And so with that, it's just kind of creating the segue into what are your thoughts about Roe versus Wade 1, and what kind of came up for you when you heard that it had been overturned?
Well, thank you, cousin Ed, because when I and hey, cousin Leah, now that I know, I'm also very like open and transparent. So like I just like to, make sure that we're all in a room and in a space where we could be ourselves. And I'm also a person where I'm like, listen, I'm gonna say what I gotta say. We can be real, we can be, open, and that's what I like. So I appreciate that. When I heard that, when that happened. Man, listen, it took me back because although I'm only like 27, I ain't, been back there. But just thinking of like, like hearing stories about like history and how, like a man can have a decision about a woman, like, and we have no choice over our bodies or, whatever decision has been made. I don't like that, like just thinking of that control thing where it's just like a man can control me, a man can tell me what to do. I don't want to jump too far yet, but like society is just like, it seems like a lot of the women nowadays are they're breadwinners, like they're going out, they're going to get it, they doing this, they doing that. And a lot of our men are kind of just like going down, if that makes sense. Like it's like a whole lot of, I gotta be strong, I gotta provide, I gotta make sure the kids are okay, I'm doing all of these things as a woman, and I'm not getting any help from my man. So in a sense, it's just like, why is a man allowed to make decisions over my body? Especially now in society where I like the women are like this, so it's
Yeah.
just like, it brings a lot. I don't want to talk too long, but it just brings.
No, you are fine.
It's
You
a
are
lot.
fine. And that's the thing. I don't want any of you to hold back, right? Because I think that these conversations are that important. And there's so much that needs to be said. And I think that, again, while we're having this intimate conversation, the little bit that we share in the small amount of time that we'll be together tonight, it's going to open up doors for other people to have the same conversations, or for people to say, oh, damn, I thought it was just me, But I think that, again, nobody wants to talk about those things. Like, why is it okay for somebody to dictate what I do with my body? So yeah, so you cannot be too long-winded when it comes to me. All right.
Me personally, when I heard about it, I was honestly lost for words, because I talk about things like this all the time. Like, decades ago, just for a woman to get their tubes tied, we needed a man's permission. But like Roe versus Wade was originally put in place, so women don't have to basically need a man's permission to do whatever they want to their body. Like I tell people all the time, or somebody that I know that is married at a young age, she goes and like, I have to ask my husband for permission. I'm like, for your body, you need permission to do something to your body. I honestly hate that. To know that a woman needs to go to a man for approval for what she owns is disgusting.
Okay, I knew you would say that. but yeah, it is. And so Sean, jump in. Like, what did you think when you heard that it had been overturned?
I think for me, my initial reaction was like, it's mind blowing that it seems like we're taking steps back continuously over the past couple of administrations. Seems like the strides that we've taken forward have kind of just been stripped away back to bare bones. And then I started to kind of think a little more critically, and I think I'm a little logical to a fault a lot of times, and I try to take emotion out of a lot of decisions that I make. And so I wanted to dive deeper into why this was even a thing. And of course, here in the US, everything is made political. So we're looking if things are blue or red or left or right wing, when they shouldn't be. But doing more digging globally, even though the government has pushed the narrative for the past 10, 20 years that we're overpopulated, we're underpopulated. And so with people having less kids, it puts the whole system in limbo. So I understand it from a pure numbers perspective, but it's such a more nuanced problem because these things impact different communities in completely different ways. So somebody living in an affluent suburb, so for us, Greenville, dealing with this issue is going to have a way, even though Delaware isn't one of the states that took away the right to abortion, someone there would have a much easier time, even if Delaware did decide to slash access to abortion. They could take a flight somewhere and take care of it. Whereas somebody in Riverside or on the east side may not have the same access to do that if they were faced with the same kind of issue. So I think overall, I understand that we do need to kind of increase population numbers, but because it's such a widespread issue, it makes it so much more complicated. And as with almost any issue that we look at, people that are from these low to moderate income communities or inner city communities, which are typically going to be Black and brown people, are going to be negatively affected way more relative to their white counterparts. So I think that's the biggest problem.
Okay. And I will honestly say, in all of my conversations, nobody has ever tied it to the need to increase the population, right? So it's only been viewed from my stance and where I sit as a negative thing, where these men sitting at the table have now made a decision to take away the rights of women, right? And so I never looked at it like that. So thank you for planting that seed. Kiki, your hand was up. Oh, okay.
No, I was like
Denise, you wanted
agreeing
to
with
jump in?
him. Like I was
Oh,
clapping what
okay.
he said.
Cousin, and don't forget there was women on that table too. That made the
That's
decision.
true. That's true. Yes, but again, it ties into accessibility too, right? So the people at the table are people who would have access. Let's say their daughter or their granddaughter came home and said, "Grandma, I'm pregnant," or "Mom, I missed my period." Those are the people that at the table that can just book a flight and take their person wherever their person needs to go. Whereas again, yes, people of the minority culture will be affected in trying to scramble and to figure out where can I go to take care of this. Go ahead, Arnice.
Another thing that Sean had brought up that I liked was the fact that making decisions on your own emotions. And I think that's a lot to do with this Roe versus Wade, because from my understanding, some of the Supreme Court, they were like Christians, or, their beliefs. You cannot be in a political seat and make decisions on your own belief for the whole nation, and that's the problem. Like, even when I first heard of it, I was mad, I was angry.
Yeah.
And I sat and I thought about it, like, when you get into these positions and then you start taking things onto your own on the way that you feel, then you shouldn't be there. Like, I'm a Christian woman, and I can honestly say that, if like it was the worst case scenario with children being raped or anything of that nature, nobody wants to push their child through a situation of having a baby, let alone that was trauma that happened. And then that would be another set of trauma, So I understand he made a good point about that, because that's the problem. People are making decisions on how they feel or what they feel is right to do from their own beliefs. And you cannot do that being in a higher power. You gotta, your job is to serve the people, not to just make decisions on your own feelings.
Yeah. And I do think that there has been this ongoing agenda that has been pushed. And I want to drop a nugget for y'all. There's a movie, and it's from back in the day, but it's called If These Walls Could Talk, right? And so I bring this movie up all the time because when I wrote the book, The Clinic, I watched If These Walls Could Talk afterwards, right? But that movie had been out for quite some time. And in that movie, it talks about like backdoor abortions and all of the ramifications that coincide with that. And so I think that it's a great movie to watch for discussion points, and especially amongst your peers. I think that, you know, it's important to create spaces to have these difficult conversations, because there will come a time, and because this bill has been overturned, and again, we're taking so many strides backwards, they're putting us in a place to have to make some really hard decisions, God forbid, if a situation were to arise, right? And so another thing I always say when talking about this particular topic is it fair to say that we all love someone who has had an abortion? And when you think about that, I would like to say everyone, that the answer is yes, you know, and sometimes it's, well, I didn't know. And I had a young man that I was working with who, and when Roe versus Wade was overturned and it hit like the airwaves and everything, his mom was like, that's crazy, right? And so then there was another guy, oh my gosh, Anish, you might know the guy's name, Gosno. Remember him? Like a few years ago, almost 10 years ago, there was an abortion doctor who had been tried for performing illegal abortions. And the same young guy, his mom was like, I went to that doctor. You know what I mean? And that's the first time he heard that his mom had had an abortion, but there were no questions that followed up with it. You know, and so in asking that question, do you all think that it's fair to say, yeah, I love somebody that has had an abortion?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it goes back to like it being like your choice, you know? A lot of people may not agree, but it is still your choice. So I have no say so. Like I have to love you. I have to respect you. You know, you never know what people are going through or the reasons why. Like I said, you may not like it or agree with it, but I have to, like, I love you. You know, you're still human, you know? So I look at it like that.
Okay.
And another thing I brought up, like Sean be on point, but y'all gotta listen to when he be talking. Like when he brought up back to the strong woman thing, you know, when he brought up the fact about the heart. We people can do so many things to us as women, and we would still love a person and still love a person, and they would still walk on us, and we would still come right back because it's the nurturing in us. And it all goes to like, if I would love somebody that got abortion that I know, or a family member, yes. Matter of fact, I'll probably be there to help them through it, support them, you know, whatever their decision is, your decision, I'm there, you know, either way, you know.
Mm-hmm. And so the hard thing too is, and you made a valid point, like just being there to support a person, right? Because so many times people suffer in silence. And I know that there has always been like a split between pro-choice and pro-life. And, you know, people can say, oh, I would never. And I can honestly say, I never pass judgment on anyone that has had an abortion, right? But I have always said, I would never, right? Whatever a person decides to do with their body is what they do with their body. But I, Ebony, would never go through that until I found myself in a situation. And my situation happened a little later in life, you know? And so it's like, again, that suffering in silence. And so when I went through my situation, I was 34. And right afterwards, I went through a major depression. And Sean can probably think back to when things changed, or my mom doesn't act like herself, but not understanding what really was going on, right? And so it's that, like being able to support people, being able to show up for people, and, you know, to hear them out and to create space when we know that something is off in a person, you know, because you can show up, like Arnie said earlier on, you can show up for individuals, but then you're neglecting yourself. And so even through my depression, still have to show up for my children, you know. And I do know for a fact, like this is Sean's first time ever hearing me say that, right? I've never said that to my son. But it's just, I am in a place where, again, going back to there's freedom and being free, you know, and you can't be free in some aspects of your life and then in bondage in others. And so, you know, again, that's why I am compelled to have these conversations, because I think that, again, when it goes back to that suffering, so many of our people, so many people that each one of you are connected to are suffering, and suffering in silence. And so that kind of goes into my next question though, but what does that mean for your future? So like with taking so many strides backwards, like really kind of having, I guess, an eye opener as to the impact of Roe versus Wade being overturned, and what does that mean for your generation? What does that mean for your significant others? You know, if let's say today or tomorrow you're like, but I'm not ready. What does that overturning of that bill mean for your future or for your peer group?
So that's actually something that we had to do in school. So I'm in school for psychology, for like clinical and child. So I go through stuff that involves like depression and stuff. And we did a research study showing that if Roe versus Wade forces a lot of young adults to have a child when they're not ready, it's going to increase the chances of a lot of depression, suicide, because it's going to put them in a place that either they're not ready to talk about, go to somebody for help, because it takes a lot of guts for somebody to say, oh, I need help, I need to go see somebody for help. And a lot of people are too afraid because they're like, oh, you go to a psychologist, you may be crazy. No, that does not mean you're crazy, but a lot of young teens and adults aren't ready to like go to somebody for help. So like studies show that it will increase suicide and depression in our generation.
Mm-hmm.
I have something to say too, Eb, that piggyback off her, and she's absolutely right. And forcing young people to have kids is nothing going to put more kids in poverty. They're going to be trying to sign up for check, food stamps, and all that, and y'all
All
don't
of that's going away.
all that stuff, and y'all don't even want to give it to them now. So that's just putting more and more. You know, understand what I'm saying? It's putting more people in bad situations where they can't move up, because then it could be a person in college, and here they are. I'm gonna drop out of college because I gotta have this baby. I don't have nobody to watch it. You know, all that is just keeping people down. So I'm like I said, I'm Christian, but it should be pro-choice because everybody's not ready.
Everybody's not ready. And then again, in having these conversations for me as well, just to be able to tie in the mental health component, because while you're saying it puts more people in poverty, I go to the suicide rate increasing, right? Because I can't face my family. So let's say it is a college student, or we'll go even younger. And you know, our niece and I recently had this conversation. Mm-hmm. And so let's say it's a middle school child, like we know people in elementary school that got pregnant. But let's say it's someone in middle school or even in high school, and they're like, I don't know how to have this conversation with my parent, nor do I have the resources to go and to have this procedure. What do I do? And a lot of people will feel that their backs are against the wall. And then I honestly believe like that suicide rate is going to increase. And so I do believe that the whole overturning of Roe versus Wade is like it has a domino effect. And I don't believe that they thought about like all of the intricacies that kind of play into them making that decision.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with everything that all three of y'all said. I do want to add in, like, coming from another standpoint of me being like a young, girl. I think most of you know my story. If not, I'm open. So I did write about it in my book, but I had an abortion. So I'm just going to start there. And now that we're at this point, to answer your question that you asked, it puts me in a place where I feel like now that I know, like, oh, I can't get an abortion, or, I'm limited to this thing, it makes me get a lot more serious about myself, if that makes sense. So I know that I don't want to just be out here, just being careless, like, or I'm making sure that I'm protecting myself, or I'm being like intentional with, everything that I'm doing, because I can't get that if something was to happen. So now I'm in a place where if you're not serious, like if a partner is not serious with me, then we're not going there, because it's already a lot of things that I would have to, go through if that was to happen. So it just makes me be a lot more secure. So I'm kind of looking at that, like, yes, I agree with everything that you all said, but it's also allowing me to be in a place where it's like, yo, because I'm living into this, I got to be serious. I can't play around with myself, if that makes sense. So
it makes a ton of sense. And one thing I used to always say to Sean growing up was that you can't plant seeds everywhere. Everybody does not deserve to receive your seed. So you need to look at every young lady that you would even consider sleeping with as a potential mother to your child. Then you'll be tied to her for the rest of your life. Right. And so I know there were times where he probably was like, if she don't shut up, like she always is going there, but it's so much truth. You have to be serious, because if you're being reckless, you're going to find yourself connected to somebody that you're like, yo, how did that even happen? And so I think just like what you said, Kiera, like just being mindful of who you allow into your space. Your body is your temple. And I think it's important to push that agenda to young men as well, because so many times they don't get that. It's only the girls that get that. And so I think that just through life experiences, some of the stuff that we saw growing up, it was indicative for me to have those conversations with Sean growing up. You want to speak to that, Sean? Like just being like,
Like,
No, I mean, I definitely feel like you were beating a dead horse for sure. But
there was a method to my madness.
But at the same time, it's like I started to see it for myself. So, and not just with like relationships with the opposite sex, but with people in general, people kind of tell on themselves either way. So I think the biggest thing for me was kind of letting things unfold. But I've always kind of had a good head on my shoulders early on anyway. So it was like before I even got to that point, I was kind of analyzing my relationships, not just like if a girl was suited for me sexually, but friendships, mentorships, whatever it was. Like, can I learn from the situation? Is this situation a value add to me? Not just, oh, I want to be around this person, or this girl looks cute, like whatever. So it always was a little deeper for me than just whatever was at the surface that everybody was attracted to. So definitely would say your points are valid. So
Okay.
the teachings worked, but that's something that I've always considered. But I definitely think it's more important now, more than ever.
Yeah, and so, and to kind of go back based off of what you said and what Kiki said, like I always ask people too, like I know people as when we were growing up that it was nothing to get an abortion, right? It was like birth control. And I could never wrap my mind around how somebody could take that trip so many times, right? And I will always question like the mentality behind that. Like, do you think about that? Do you not feel? And I'm an empath, so I feel everything, right? And so I just could not wrap my mind around it. And then when I had my experience, I really couldn't wrap my mind around it, because I'm like, shit, if this is what it does to you mentally and emotionally, like how can you make those trips? And so I've always thought about or wondered why or how a person could be a frequent flyer of the abortion clinic. And then also for the guy, I think about how guys can be the habitual funder of sending chicks to the clinic to get an abortion, and so those two things have always kind of sparked my curiosity, because I'm like, it does not make sense to me, right? And so is there like this huge disconnect where it's like, and I know and speaking with guys, a lot of times guys will say, well, it's not really a baby. Or if I don't see it, then it's non-existent. And so I don't have a problem with passing off money. But when we think about the mental health attached to that, like, again, that just always leaves me at a loss for words. And so I do think that in having these types of conversations, my hope is that we can get to the bottom of that, right? We can figure that thing out. Or maybe someone will come forward and say, you know what, I was one of those frequent flyers. And because I had so much trauma, right, I just became numb to it. That was the easiest way for me to do it. And think about that, right? So it's like I could be reckless, but I have this out. And I get putting boundaries in place and things like that. But then again, just offering the space for people to be able to kind of walk in total freedom and to release themselves from that. Because with that, I feel like suffering is attached to it.
I agree.
Yeah, I think speaking to that too, and I don't want to misspeak on when birth control became kind of widespread, but I believe it was in the 60s. But like, speaking to your point about recklessness, at one point, women were having children a lot earlier. So it was common for people to be married at 15, 16 and have kids like crazy. Like, like my Mama Liz, her generation, she had like 13 brothers and sisters. So that was like so normal. But with that, women had to be more intentional about who they were with and the things that they were doing. So women were solely looking for the best suitor as a man, which still happens, but they were looking for a level of security and ultimately marriage, because there was no out, to your point. So if you got pregnant, there was no getting rid of it unless it was some kind of hole in the wall operation that could put your life at risk. Now, and I think there are so many things that contribute to that, especially with the Black community, like with all our, well, a lot of our men going to prison dating back to the 80s. So there's really no male figure, for one. Around that time, a lot of Black women start going to college. So then we have this influx of like boss ladies, as opposed to we were used to women only being groomed for marriage and having children. And so now there's a lot more freedom to kind of make your own decisions, which has its benefits for sure. But when it comes to finding the best suitor, there isn't as much pressure to do it because, as you said, there's an out. In some states, it doesn't exist anymore. So, and Key, you touched on it too. It's like now you're being a lot more critical of the people that you're engaging with too, because you don't want to have to deal with the aftermath of a situation if someone's not taking you serious. So I think in a way, it'll be a good thing to make everybody become more serious about the decisions that they're making. Even though we still have access to like birth control and what have you, I do think there's an onus on us, men and women, to be a lot more responsible too, instead of leaning so heavily on having the option to make that out. So while it definitely has negative consequences, I think in a weird way, it helps us to kind of think more critically of what we're actually doing instead of just, quote unquote, having fun or finding ourselves and just making bad decisions. So I think just food for thought there.
Okay, good point.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. I was going to also say, even though some of us is upset because they overturn it, both of y'all made very good points, you and Sean, because these people could have been making decisions on the note of the frequent flyers, like seeing the same people constantly getting abortions. And I think we might have known some of the same people. Always thought from back in the day, like, why do these same people keep getting abortions? Number one, myself, honestly, I had an abortion and I too felt the same way, like, oh, I can never do this again. Like, it wasn't just physical pain for me, it was a mental thing. And it was a thought process of what if I would have just kept, what if, and it did hurt for a while because my other children, I was like, well, what made it so, I went through that whole process, so I could never understand why people constantly went back and back like it was a game. I'm like, really? Again? So, thinking on the other side, on the other foot, on the other table, that these people probably made the decision to overturn it because of frequent flyers, because of the same points that y'all was just making.
Yeah, I think that, and so again, we could play devil's advocate all night, right? But again, I think ultimately it takes away the rights of women. And as all of you were talking, another thing that came up for me was, so while on a national level, right, everybody is in this uproar, a lot of people are in an uproar about the fact that this right has been kind of stripped away, right? But then I thought about when a young person gets pregnant and then the family makes the decision for them, right? There's really no difference, but we can justify it on this side and say, well, because I know what's best for you, I'm going to choose for you. You don't know what's best for you, right? So if you're 14 or 15 and I'm telling my daughter that she doesn't know what's best for her and I make the decision for her, not thinking about the mental anguish that comes with that, the resentment that then she has towards me, right? And so policy stripped away, parental pressure being enforced, right? And so I just thought about that as we all were having this conversation, though, but it's one and the same, I feel like. Do you guys agree with that, or do you think that it's like completely different?
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point. And I'll speak just from experience. And so when I went through my situation, right? I myself, just feeling like, I wasn't ready. And I'm going to be all the way like transparent and honest. I felt like I wasn't ready. However, like family members were like, no, like you can do it. Like, like just wanting me to keep my child. And I didn't want to. So I did what was best for me, even though they wanted the opposite. But then it makes me think about how, like, in those times where people will say like, oh, we'll be here, we want you to have this child, you're going to be okay. I felt like I wasn't ready. So I had to do what was best for me. And then I look back at, now in my family, I know that I wasn't ready. And then I see like the generation, which is like, I know I wasn't ready. Like, it's just going to be a repeated cycle. Like, I know that if I would have, I don't know, been 27 years old right now, having a 4 or 5-year-old, I would have been struggling. Not saying that I wouldn't have figured it out or I wouldn't have made it, but I'm seeing my family and they got a couple kids and, they're not like, I'm not putting them down, but it's just like a lot of things that I see. I just knew growing up, I never really had a role model. I always had what I didn't want to be like, if that makes sense. So I didn't want to be like, the generation in my family. No, I'm not trying to, be rude about it, but I just had to make the best decision for me. And I don't regret it because, I think I made the best decision. Like I said, if it did go the other way, I would have figured it out, but I probably would have been struggling, so I don't know. That's all.
Well, I'll say I am smiling, not because I feel like you're putting anybody down, because that's the true epitome of women empowerment, right? Like just being an empowered woman early on. I know what I see and I know that what I don't want for myself. And I never want you to feel guilty for saying that out loud, because I saw you like, oh my God, like, oh my God. Your wheels started turning, but I never want you to feel guilty for doing what's best for you, and it's okay. And that's our role, right? To serve as a guide, whether it's what I want or what I don't want. And so for you to be able to see things, and you're like, I have a desire for a certain lifestyle, and this is not what I want for myself. Nothing against anybody else. It's just not what I would want for myself. And that's okay. There's power in being able to see clearly and to say, nah, I'm good. I don't want that for myself. So I never, ever, ever moving forward want you to ever feel guilty about speaking your own truth and saying that out loud, because again, that's where the freedom lies, you know. But that's a really good point. And even from a guy, Sean has said that too. And so when you just said that, I'm like, it was like deja vu, because he said too, like, I knew what I did not want, you know, growing up in a single parent household. He knows that that's not what he wants for his future. I wouldn't wish that on none of you guys, because that shit is hard as fuck. Now, that's me being ratchet, but it's the truth. Nobody signs up and says, you know what, I want to do this thing by myself. You know, people can kind of say it's a control thing or whatever. Nobody wants to raise their children by themselves. And because you all are able to look at things and to say, you know what, yeah, I would have been struggling. Stuff would have been hard for me. That's not what I want. I want my partner to be hands-on. I want this in a partner, right? And so that's y'all's truth. And that part is okay. But yeah, Sean has said that before.
I wanted to say something.
Oh,
It's a
go ahead,
little
go
bit
ahead.
off a topic, because like when you guys
Yeah.
just started to say stuff, and like this question popped up into my head. So don't call me, because I'm not thinking about having no kid, but you know, I got to get my yearly checkups with the OB-GYN. So, so I just like when we first like heard about this being overturned, the first thing that popped into my mind was, what if people like me end up getting pregnant and their body's not capable of holding a baby long term? So I have a lot of mental, like not mental, I mean like I have like a lot of like health problems, like asthma, allergies, like vocal cord disorder. I have a lot of stuff like that. And I get told, like, you know, they tell me, oh, you can hold the baby not like for the full term, but there could be like problems along the way. I could be ended up in the hospital on bed rest at like 3-4 months because like my body can't hold it, or like, you know, I think of stuff like that. So it's like, if they're telling somebody with a lot of health problems that they can't get an abortion no matter if their life is at risk, stuff like that just like makes me like kind of want to cry.
Yeah, it's not okay. And that is what's currently happening. And I don't know if you all saw where the young lady was expecting a child and she went for her ultrasound and the baby's skull wasn't developing. And
Yes.
she wanted to terminate the pregnancy. And they're telling her that because in that state, I don't remember which state it is, but that she has to carry this pregnancy through full term. So now she not only she's going to be grieving, right? The fact that my child is probably not going to make it, grieving the fact that what I thought was going to be a normal baby is not, right? It doesn't mean that I am not going to love this baby, but now the trauma of going through the actual labor and delivering this child, when we know that this baby is going to be born with a major defect that will probably complicate its ability to survive, right? Nothing about that is okay. And so when we think about the influx of the mental health stuff, that young lady is already going through that stuff, you know, and you're absolutely right, you know, for you to be put in a position of knowing I may not be able to carry this baby, or if some major complication arises and you're telling me I have to move forward with this. I think that the mortality rate of the, you know, there's this whole thing too about Black maternal health, right? And there's already a high number of Black women dying while giving childbirth or afterwards. And then I feel like, yes, this decision or this bill being overturned is just going to add to that. Go ahead, Sean.
No, I was just saying, and with having a baby that has a birth defect, there's a cost to that too. In addition to just raising a child, there's complex care that comes with a child that typically won't be covered by, you know, traditional insurances. And a lot of times that puts families in a bind from the gate.
Or you have those parents that have to keep taking care of the kid while in their 20s because they can't take care of themselves.
they can't take care of themselves. And then think about, like, to layer that too with now being a single parent, right? I'm the breadwinner. I have to be at all of the appointments. There is no help, And so again, they are just changing the trajectory of that young lady's life. But I think, like you said too, Lily, with the fact that, okay, I have all of these medical issues that I am currently dealing with. And then for you guys to take that away from me, right? Just having the option, it's just not okay. Like, no matter how we spin it, nothing about it is okay. But I think that, or before I say that, I'll ask you all, what do you think will be necessary for your age group to kind of get it? Like, to understand what this decision means? Because I think that there are some people that are like really okey doke with it, but then there are others that are gung ho with it. And then there are some that are just completely ignorant to what it means for them. So what do you guys think is necessary for your peer group to get it?
I definitely think awareness, like I feel like this is more needed. I know this is small and like intimate for us, but I feel like this on like a bigger scale is definitely needed, because a lot of times, like, our generation make decisions off of like impulse or just really quick, or they're hearing this and they're like, oh, I feel this type of way, but they're not really understanding, all sides. They're not really being educated on, the whole topic in itself. So I definitely feel like more awareness needs to be brought about, especially for our generation.
Mm-hmm.
It allows, like you said, this space, like we need these spaces to talk it out. We need these spaces to answer questions, to ask why, to understand, and then especially with, our people that's in our close age range. So we can feel like, okay, I'm not the only young person in here, or I have this older person that can talk, with me and not, talking at me, or I'm not talking at this person, but we're all just having like this open conversation to understand each other and to learn each other. I definitely think that is needed. Like I said, just awareness and education, because we are, a lot of times our generation is so hard-headed, and they're not really educated on the topic. So like, just to really get the education behind it and understand it, and then go from there, if that makes sense.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I feel like awareness to like all aspects of what we talked about, coming from abortion to somebody going to somebody for needing help. Like I still tell people, oh, when I was in high school, I was kind of afraid of telling people that I go see a counselor, but cousin Ebony knows that phase of my life. It was pretty rough. But I'm only 20 and I still tell people I've seen a counselor for 5 years in my life and I'm fine. It did help me a lot. So I bring awareness to telling people it's okay to get help. And I myself tell people, if you always need someone to talk to, I'm here. I'm not a judgmental person, but I am the type of person that's going to tell you, like, girl, you need help. Like, go get it. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Awareness is the big thing. I think right now, I'll speak for the Gen Zers, me and Key's generation.
You just missed the mark, Lily.
I know. I'm like right there, but it's okay. My maturity's up there with y'all.
Yeah, I can speak for us. Like, even though we have a greater access to information more than any other generation in history, we still don't necessarily tap into it the way that we should, for one. And a lot of times we can be very loud and very wrong about what's going on. So
that's my generation too.
I'll say awareness is the biggest thing, and just being receptive. But I'm not sure it will click until it begins to impact people, or people close to us in a serious way, for us to really take it a little more seriously. Like when the news initially hit back in June, everybody had something to say about it. It's been pretty quiet since then, outside of political activism. But yeah, I think that's when we'll kind of see a resurgence and people becoming more vocal about it again, is when it starts to really impact them or the people that they love and hold near and dear to their hearts. So I think it'll take some time, and it also depends on where you live in the U.S. But I think it'll take some time before it kind of gains traction again, and the conversation starts to pick up steam.
Okay, all right. So, Arnice, what do you think that is needed across the board?
I agree with all them. They all have valid points. They're awesome and everything they said. And yes, I totally agree because see, like their generation, it's like whatever's on the wave at that time. Like Sean said, everybody the hot topic. And like you said, things die down and then it's like everybody's not talking about it no more. Then something else come up, they'll be talking about it. So I think that awareness. I think that you guys have a very strong mind. All three of y'all are very strong minded, very focused. And if we have more like you guys and y'all just keep it coming, like y'all be them figures of making a point so people don't forget and so they can, stay aware of what's going on. We need more young people like you guys that are, you know, it's just three of y'all on here at your age, and it should be much more. So we need more of y'all, to stay focused and push because y'all are leaders. Y'all can lead your generation and being aware of more political and important things like this. So we need more like y'all. And y'all always right. Y'all all had good points. So for your generation, y'all are the leaders.
I agree. I agree. And so again, this is just the start of something bigger. I honestly feel like it's huge, right? And so when it was dropped on me, I was like, all right, God, I know I have to do it now. And then people will question, like, how can you tie God into having this discussion? How can I not? Because it's only been by the grace of God that I am still in my right mind, because that experience could have taken me out. Just being able to go and have the procedure done in a place where I want to say, like, I don't know, what am I looking for? That it wasn't back alley type stuff. You know what I mean? And so it's like just being able to go where there were skilled professionals assisting me. And so again, I felt that it would be robbery if I didn't, kind of put myself out there to start having the conversation. And so again, these types of conversations, the Zooms, and I'm glad that we can connect this way because all of us are in different areas. Lily is down in Virginia. You know what I mean? We're all on different sides of town. And just for us to be able to come together collectively, I really appreciate it. And so again, I wanted to start some traction before the actual relaunch, which is on September the 16th. And I would encourage you guys to share the link for Evite with your friends, because while this is intimate, that conversation is going to be intimate because I'm only selling 50 tickets, right? And so once it's at 50, there's no room for anyone else, right? Because I want us to be in a space of being able to kind of really have these open conversations and to hear each other out. And so I'm really excited about it. I think that the conversation is going to be so dope. My hope is that, there are levels to the age groups that show up, because I think that, like, Arnice and I were able to kind of learn from you all tonight. I think that there were some things that you guys learned or were able to pick up from us as well. But I just think being able to have the fluid conversation about these hard topics that people are unwilling to talk about, right? And I think that what I've learned too is, for some people, in my own transparency, other people then feel empowered to be transparent as well. And so it's like, people kind of have like this sigh of relief that they're not in this thing alone, that they haven't been the only one that has experienced something. And then again, I think culturally, we begin to eliminate that silent suffering, right? And so that's ultimately my goal, to shed light on these conversations, to create awareness, and again, I just think it's going to be huge. But I want to really stick to what I told you guys when we started, as far as respecting your time. And it's 8:05, so we could talk about this all night. And y'all all know I'm a talker, but I'm not going to do that to y'all. But again, I just thank y'all so much for taking time out to join me in this discussion. I love each one of you. Yeah, it's gonna be great. And so we'll get together and we'll do more things like this, just as a way again of shining the light on those dark topics that people are unwilling to talk about. So we can be the catalyst for change in that area. So again, I appreciate all of you.
I have one thing to say, like what you
Okay.
said, and you've been speaking this, it's like speak your truth. And when you really speak your truth and you speak about those ugly things that people don't really want to talk about, it is helping somebody, because you
Mhm.
may have somebody sitting there like, I ain't gonna tell that part because I'm scared. I don't know what nobody gonna say. And the minute that you speak it, it's like a light bulb goes off in that person. They're like, oh my God, they went through that too. Well, let me
Yeah.
tell you, you know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
having these discussions and keeping it growing, this is really going to help a lot of people. So I
Yeah.
really think, yeah, we should go beyond this. Like, you should push. I'm with y'all because we need it. Like Kiara sharing her story, sharing
Yes.
all that. Like when you share your story and your truth, you don't know, it's about 5 or 6 people sitting there and I'm probably been through the same thing and scared to let it out because they
Yeah.
don't know how people going to receive.
And I think everybody said that, they're non-judgmental, but we are our own worst critics, right?
Mhm.
And so while we're saying we're not judgmental, a lot of times we judge ourselves, right? We judge ourselves for a decision, for a situation. But again, it's about freeing yourself. And I think that it's empowering as well for you all to be as young as you are, to be able to learn early about releasing certain things that are tying or weighing you down. And so I think that, again, like your mom said, each of you are leaders, and never lose sight of that. Never, ever be ashamed to tell your story. Never feel guilty for saying that you want more or you want better or you just want to do something different, but yeah, so I appreciate each of you.
And oh, I want to say,
Oh,
Aaliyah, we need you too, honey, because there's a lot of people out there that don't think they need help, but they need help. So, honey, you right in the wave, girl, and you can reach a lot of young people. I'm telling you, these young people from 16, 15, 17, 18, we don't know what be going through their minds, and they're afraid to talk, like you said. So you can be encouraging a lot of people.
yeah. And I'll say too, I intentionally reached out to each of you. And I shared this with Lily. I reached out to each of you because you guys are leaders, you are sounding boards, and you don't have a problem with being vocal, right? And so I think that, again, there's so much strength in that. And again, this is just family tonight. And so I always tell people, like, you have no idea what comes from the trees in our family, and so it's important,
Mhm.
again, that we just create the momentum and keep it going. And so Lily and Kiki, I'm gonna put y'all in connection with each other.
Yes, for
I think
sure.
that for Kiki and Sean, y'all need to connect and have that lunch
I
date,
know we do.
and stop putting it
They
off.
definitely
I know
do.
But
we really do.
yeah, and Lily, I think that I'll reach out to your dad again too, but I'm not sure if he and your mom were planning on coming up for the 16th, but if so,
They be coming up without me. They listen, they don't love me no more.
they
It's like I
definitely
don't
love
live
you.
there. It's like I don't live there. They had somebody come in and measure my room because I'm moving out.
Yeah, they have to practice.
Speaking of
They're
that,
getting ready.
Sean, I will send you my registry list. Hard times, broke college student. You love me, so I will send you my registry.
But
Oh
yeah,
yeah, Sean, I gotta send you my registry too. Look, boom.
Sean said, I'm done
I
already.
moved, so I gotta send you my new registry.
I'm
It's
done
okay,
with your
Sean.
already.
You know, I
Yes.
take gift cards, all of it.
And she's not lying. Listen,
I'm not.
they're going to be doing a
October
registry
1st.
swap, all of them. But yes, well, yeah. So again, thank y'all. I love y'all and enjoy the rest of y'all's evening.
Love
I love you
y'all.
all.